Recently in the news, there's been a lot of information about possibly Armour or different types of natural desiccated thyroid being banned and the FDA coming after that, and also levothyroxine being recalled. There's lots of information about medications. Will it always be on the market? And so in this conversation, I'm going to talk to you about thyroid medications, what the FDA letters that have recently been issued means for you, especially if you are on any type of thyroid medications, and what we recommend in our practice. I now eat a lot of meat, and so do they. If you want to thrive, you need to eat meat. Meat is required. Hey guys, my name is Judy Cho and I'm board certified in holistic nutrition, and I have a private functional medicine practice where we have worked with over 2,500 clients and patients get closer to root cause healing. And we often start with the Carnivore Cures all meat elimination diet. Today is a solo, and I'm going to talk about an influx of emails we received and from our clients and patients about a number of thyroid medication issues that were happening and how people were not able to get or possibly get their medications, an FDA letter that went out, and what this all may mean for you, especially if you are taking some type of thyroid medication for being hypo or hyperthyroid, and what you can do to support yourself. We actually share all of our updates in our newsletter. So if you are not signed up for our weekly newsletter, I highly recommend signing up. I share a lot of information about the latest things that are happening, tidbits, pro tips from a functional medicine practice, share our thoughts on some of the things that are going on in the carnivore space, and even questions that we are asked that we provide clinical nuanced support. We also share the latest articles, and it's honestly probably the only place right now that we are sharing the latest articles. And so, if you are wanting in depth articles, I think the last one we shared is on the effects of tinnitus, why it happens, and what are natural ways that you can support yourself from tinnitus. And recently, we shared an in depth article about my thoughts on what's going on in the thyroid medication world and what that may mean for you. I will put this article in the show notes. I will also put the link to sign up for our newsletter. And that's really where I share most of my updates now that I'm not really on social media. With all that said, let's talk a little bit about the recent concerns around thyroid medications, my thoughts on it. If you are worried about sourcing your thyroid medicines, I don't think you have to be too concerned just yet, but there are some things that I do want you to think about. I'm going to always give a little bit of education before we get into it. What is thyroid hormone? It encompasses two primary hormones that are in your thyroid gland, which is in front of your neck. The primary hormones are T4 and T3, and these play a significant role in metabolism and influence almost every cell in the body. Your key thyroid markers are all of the following. So TSH, so thyroid stimulating hormone, T3, T4, reverse T3, free hormones, which is free T4, free T3, and then there's thyroid antibodies. There's also T1, T7, but these are some of the main markers. You could read this article. It goes into a lot more detail of what the thyroid markers are. TSH is the one that basically tells the body if there's a sufficiency or not of T4 and T3. T4 converts to active T3. So all of these really matter. Then we have a lot of the thyroid medications, and we believe that thyroid medications, for the most part, are used when there are imbalances. For example, you get your free T3 tested, and free T3 oftentimes on a carnivore diet can be lower. We have a whole article on why free T3 may be lower. It could be that just in your cells, there are now more T3 that's in saturation. There's less that needs to be circulated on a carnivore diet. It just may be a new norm, especially if you have decent energy levels. But again, thyroid medications, usually if you are low in T4, they will recommend T4. And then if you are low in T3, then they'll also recommend T3 medications. The way that we view in our practice thyroid medication is in standard care, we think of it as long-term, sometimes lifelong. It's focusing on symptom suppression and lab normalization. So once your T3 markers are normalized because you are taking T3, then hey, you're good, even if you still have hypothyroid symptoms. Whereas for us, we view it as a short-term bridge or support. Let's get you feeling better. And then we can figure out what is your root cause that is causing your thyroid to be imbalanced. Because normally a hypothyroid or hyperthyroid is often not a root cause issue. And I will talk about that more in a little bit. Just so that we're on the same page, these are the different types of thyroid medications. There's a synthetic, which is basically lab made, and there's levothyroxine, and there's leothyronine. Both of these are T4s and T3s. And then there's also the combination therapies, which is T4, T3. There's also compounded medications. Basically, you get it at a compounding pharmacy, and they will microdose this amounts to basically fit your needs. And then there's porcine derived. Basically, that's from a pig, and it's the natural desiccated thyroid, which is NDT, desiccated thyroid extract, that's DTE. And then there's desiccated thyroid analog, and they are all from the animal of the pig. And so Armour Thyroid and Thyroid are all within this type of medication. And I know for many people, NP Thyroid is no longer prescribed. And so a lot of people have moved on to Armour Thyroid. So when you go to your doctor and you are imbalanced in thyroid numbers, oftentimes a hypothyroid person will be first put on levothyroxine. And it's because oftentimes when you're imbalanced, the thought is that if you get T4, the T4 can convert to as much of the T3 that's needed. So most doctors start with levothyroxine. Some people will then get direct the synthetic version of T3. And then we see again those combination therapies. Now, natural desiccated thyroid, as mentioned, is from dried porcine or pig thyroid glands. And it's a blend of thyroid hormones, mainly T4 and T3, plus smaller amounts of T2, T1, and calcitonin. And then the desiccated thyroid extract, DTE, is just simply the formal medical term. And then the NDT has the desiccated thyroid analog, and those brands are Armour Thyroid, NP Thyroid, Nature Thyroid. And I only bring this up because part of the issue that has come up is that the natural versions or the porcine derived versions are the ones that's been kind of in the hot seat. So the first concern that we were getting was that many people that were getting prescribed their medications from Asia, their thyroid medications from Asia, were no longer able to get it. And we actually received some of the letters, and the letters stated that for some reason, the tariffs from Asia to America was no longer allowing the company to mail out the medications to the US. So issue number one, thyroid medications sourced from Asia are no longer accessible due to tariffs. I don't know if that is fully valid. I did see the letter that even shared the information, but because at the end of the day, companies always want to make money. And if the only reason is because tariffs are making things more expensive, then the drug companies usually put the price and the burden on the consumer. They would normally not remove the product because tariffs are in place. Now, we explained how Trump administration adding tariffs has caused a little bit of cost increase, given that some of the complexities with China, and then I think some of the medications were from Thailand. I don't know if the true cause was really tariff related. And so that really comes down to number two. So issue number two, which this FDA letter came around the same time that these companies in Asia, specifically Thailand, was saying we no longer can prescribe your thyroid medication or the Armour. So in August 6th, the FDA issues a letter to all companies that were releasing the animal-derived thyroid medications, announcing new regulatory standard requirements. And in that letter, the FDA was saying that based on non-validated safety, inconsistent dosing, impurity risk, that anyone that is offering these medications will have to cease sharing these medications. And so the FDA said that, hey, if you are selling these medications, we are going to now give you enforceable action for selling these items. Now, I know a lot of us are super anti-FDA. I totally get it, but I do want to share some thoughts on that. One thing I will say is if you are getting medication that has no prescription end for the medication you are receiving, that is pretty suspect. And then beyond that, though, if you are getting medication from a different country, I'm not saying that all the drugs in America are safe, but I would feel some level of more comfort getting the medications in America where it's been tested, even if it's not always safe, because I'm going to talk about levothyroxine very shortly. But If you are getting it from a different country, how do you know if the dosages are being tested for the consistency it's supposed to be? What about all the additives, the fillers, the whatever else is in it? You just don't know because it's not being tested. Even if it is being tested, how do you know for sure? Because what is the governmental body there that is ensuring that it is safe for you? Now, if you've been taking it for years, maybe it's okay. But again, I think there is some level of concern that I would have getting it from a foreign country that is not governed when even these Armour thyroids are not fully governed in the US. So, what I'll tell you is that I don't know all the nuances of why the FDA is going after Armour. Sure, you could say, hey, it's because levothyroxine and T3 are not making as much money. I really don't think so because even those medications are super cheap. But there have been concerns over the years and decades about issues that have happened, violations that have occurred with Armour Thyroid because it is not as evaluated by the FDA. Again, I know FDA is not perfect, but I want to highlight some of the concerns that were brought up. So, since late 2017, the FDA has flagged multiple manufacturing violations, and you can click on all of these links to see it in desiccated thyroid extract producing facilities. These violations included poor quality control, inadequate stability data, failure to investigate out of specification results properly, and inconsistent potency from one batch to the next. Alongside this, the FDA has tracked more than 500 adverse event reports associated with desiccated thyroid since 1968, with a sharp spike between 2019 and 2020, when several voluntary recalls were issued for subpotent or super potent batches. So then in August 6th to 7th of 2025, FDA escalated its oversight by sending formal letters to manufacturers, importers, and distributors, which I think honestly is the reason why that Thailand company was like, sorry, the tariffs are too expensive, so we can no longer send out medications. I honestly think it was these letters that scared them and that gave people transition of up to 12 months to move to FDA approved thyroid replacements, which were more of the levothyroxine types. And again, even if you trust that brand, the fact that if they are not being honest, and it's not really a tariff thing because they could just incur the cost to you as a consumer, because if you're willing to pay, why not make the money? But if they are now saying, hey, it's a tariff thing, so we're not going to even send out medications to you, or if it's because the FDA has now said, hey, if you don't change what you're doing in the next 12 months, we're going to come after you. If that's the reason, I would want that full transparency. Now, after this note came out, of course, there are a lot of people on this medication, but Dr. Marty Makary on August 13th on Twitter or X shared, so this was about a week later, said, hey, guys, we are going to do research on DTE so that we can make it more standardized and ensure that it is safe for people to use. So for now, we're not going to give a period of time where you will not lose your medication. It is somewhat safe. Your medications won't go away in a year, but there's still controversy in terms of it may go away one day because the risk is that even though Dr. Makary came out with, hey, we're going to test the Armours and making sure it's safe and being more controlled under the FDA and making it safe for you to trust this medication, it takes time to do trials and clinical trials to ensure that it is safe for the consumer. And so there might be a period where it is not available. And so again, this is why we're even bringing up this topic. This article goes on to talk about how this whole issue with Armour Thyroid DTEs are not new. In 2013, FDA sent out a note, and then in 2020. So again, we have linked to all of the issues that have been going on, and there have been issues where people have had issues with these DTEs, not saying that T4 and T3 synthetic are good either, but just saying that there have been issues. There was a survey in 2017 where over 12,000 patients were taking desiccated thyroid extract and they did report fewer issues. Again, this whole debate about is Armour safer or is the more regulated versions of T4, T3 safer is still under debate. Yes, natural is always better, but again, if there is no governing body, and you're making it from a different country that has no regulations in a sense, is it really safer? I don't know. Now, if you're getting it in the States from a compounding pharmacy, I would trust that far more. We work with our compounding pharmacy to get those medications too. Some of the numbers for the market for medications, thyroid medications represent, hey guys, just a really quick break. Nutrition with Judy's private practice is now called Empower Functional Health. I started as a nutritional therapist, but we have become much more all-encompassing. At Empower Functional Health, we do functional medicine, chronic illness, autoimmune, gut health, environmental illness such as SIRS, mold illness, Lyme. Regardless of all these names, the goal for us is always to get you root cause healing answers. And of course, carnivore, the all meat elimination diet is always on the table. Food, the right food, is always medicine. We offer functional tests, prescription meds, and really everything to get you closer to root cause, where you can just eat the meats you enjoy and live the life that you are meant to symptom-free. The goal is to get off meds, supplements, and everything else that your body no longer needs support in. Our practice, whether it's Nutrition with Judy, sharing podcasts and free content, or our private practice, Empower Functional Health, our goal is to support you guys in the barbell theory. We give a lot of free content, our evidence-based research. We don't use Substack. We give all our stuff away for free. We interview with the best and make it super tactical so you have clinical pearls that you can walk away with and try in your own healing journey. And then we work with some people in a smaller subset, one-on-one, to provide that level of personalized care. And as we heal these people that are chronically ill, we find these clinical pearls and golden nuggets that we can share then more publicly so that we can make wellness for all. Hopefully, the content and the guides and the free stuff we give out is enough for you to heal. But if it's not, you can always come and work with us in our private practice so that you can get more personalized care. If you want to learn more, make sure to check out empowerfunctionalhealth.com. A massive market, levothyroxine is top 3 of 4 most prescribed drugs in the US, 80 to 100 million prescriptions filled each year. And then DTE, so the Armour's again, represents tens of millions of prescriptions. It's about 20%. Our practice's opinion overall about this is I do think we should have patient choice. If you want to get on Armour, I think you should have every right to. I don't think we should be taking away medications from people. But with that, all that said, there are concerns when there is no regulation. I know a lot of us think that there should be no regulation, but the problem is that there's always some level of bad players. Some level of regulation is good. I think the government sometimes takes too much regulation. So it's always this fine balance and dance. The other issue is in end of July. So right around the same time, the FDA also recalled 160,000 bottles of levothyroxine. That is the T4. That's the one that is governed by the FDA and FDA approved. In one aspect, you could say, well, you can't even trust the levothyroxine. But in another point of view, you can say, see, FDA does govern and is able to say, hey, the levothyroxine in these doses were incorrect. And so they were pulled immediately. It's that risk versus reward. Do you want some level of governance by the FDA? I know a lot of us don't trust the FDA right now. I just think that there is some level of benefit when drugs are being monitored. But overall, we know that levothyroxine isn't fully safe either, which again is why I even wrote this article. My fourth issue is that there are medications that are purposely removed from the market or no longer available, and it's because a economic interest. And so that is a bigger concern for me. But the bigger issue is, what if your medication gets pulled because now there's this new medication or a slightly changed version that's now patented that's really expensive? So a perfect example is the drug Makena. It was a drug used to prevent preterm birth. Originally, Makena existed as a cheap compounded medication that many women could afford. But when KV Pharmaceutical obtained FDA approval for the branded version of Makena, the company was granted exclusive rights. The FDA then banned all other compounded versions, effectively removing any other lower cost generic version. And then what ended up happening, though, is after several years of controversy, the FDA withdrew approval for the Makena drug itself. So now there was no drug available for a FDA-approved treatment for women at risk for preterm birth. But this isn't an isolated problem. Daraprim, which was a drug treating for toxoplasmosis, which is a parasitic infection, It was an inexpensive drug, but in 2015, a pharmaceutical company acquired the rights and then overnight increased the price from $13.50 for a pill to $750, which is a 5,000% hike. There are so many examples of this where drugs are pulled from the market so that pharmaceutical companies can change it a little bit or make it the structure chemically slightly different and then re-release the product to make it super expensive, patented, so there's no generic versions, or they will change it and then acquire the rights or remove it from the market. And they do all of these things where this is very financially favorable for these pharmaceutical companies. When these concerns of these drugs come up, it should not be just, I am taking Armour and now what do? I can't get my drug. Yes, that is a concern, but what is the long-term worry? What if they just remove all of Armour, or what if they remove levothyroxine? These things should be considered when we are taking and dependent on a drug from the pharmaceutical companies to have a standard of living. I talk about insulin prices as an example. There was a period where insulin was skyrocketing and there was nothing we could do. For type 1 diabetics, what do you do when you actually need some amounts of insulin? The goal should be true sovereignty. It should be the true ability that we can move along and live along however we choose to, whether it's the type of food we eat, the way we live our lives. And if we can be less dependent on medications, that would be the goal. I did touch on genetic hypothyroidism. It is less than 1% of the cases. Doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. Most people that have hypothyroidism, it is not genetic. So it is not because my mom had hypothyroid and therefore I had hypothyroid. Lifestyles are very similar from parent to child. It is not a genetic reason usually for 99% of the people that are hypothyroid. So then the question becomes, why are you hypothyroid? So in the 2022 retrospective cohort study with 412 subclinical hypothyroid patients over 3 years, they found that half of them normalized. So 95% never became fully hypothyroid. 45% or 46% remained in a subclinical state, meaning that whatever numbers their numbers were 3 years before, it kind of stayed the same without getting on medications. And then 46.5% of them basically without intervention normalized. And so only 4.6% of them became overtly hypothyroid. So how many of your doctors would get you on medication because, hey, your TSH is 6, a little bit high, you're showing fatigue? Yep, it's hypothyroid. Let's get you on meds. Let's get you on levothyroxine. Let's get you on Armour, and you're going to feel all better. And all your fatigue, your hair loss, you're feeling cold, all of that is going to go away. And even if you feel a little better, most patients that work with us, they're on thyroid medications, but it's not working enough that they feel fatigued, that they want to come and see, can you help me rebalance my thyroid meds and eventually even get off it because it is not working enough. And so I ask you, do you fall into this medication study? The question of just going immediately to, oh, I tested my thyroid because I have a bit of fatigue and my TSH is high. My T4, T3 is low, so I'm just going to get on levothyroxine. This 2022 review paper showed that people that did not take any medication, a lot of the people, their hypothyroid normalized, and then some of them never became fully hypothyroid. So if you were slightly imbalanced and then you got on thyroid medication, is it causing you to have to be on thyroid medications for the rest of your life because now you're not seeking root cause answers? For many people, the thyroid medication is not the answer to their fatigue. Sure, they will feel better for a bit, but eventually they have to maneuver or manage the T4, T3, make sure their TSH is up. That's why iodine videos do so well, because people think maybe it's the iodine. But whatever the root cause is, we should be searching for that instead of let me just band-aid not enough T4 by taking more T4, or not enough T3 and let's take the 3. Or let's just take Armour, which is natural thyroid, but still a medication, and let's use that. Well, what if we just find out what the root cause of the thyroid imbalance is? Because again, 1% of people with hypothyroid have it because of a genetic reason. So everyone else is often getting it because of lifestyle imbalances. So something in your lifestyle that maybe made you more susceptible to hypothyroid, but something in your lifestyle triggers the hypothyroidism. And in our practice, a lot of it can be mold related. But if your mom suffered from that hypothyroid, that is not the reason you are also suffering. Again, you can do the genetic test. It's only 1% or less that is suffering from congenital hypothyroid. So for the 99%, even if your parents had it and grandparents, what if you have a similar lifestyle thing that's causing you to get hypothyroid? Thyroid medications don't solve the root cause issue. I know some of you guys might hate me for saying that, but I always want you to get to root cause healing. Thyroid markers reflect deeper physiological processes. Supplementing with hormones doesn't correct the underlying imbalance. I'm not saying to don't take it, because oftentimes we need a band-aid to project us to get more further healing. If it's a catalyst, I'm totally supportive of that. But long term, you may have to get on a bigger dose, or it may not be working enough. And then what are you going to do? Or worst case, what if the medication is no longer around or it costs so much money? And so lastly, there are studies, you could see the studies here, but thyroid medication risks do come with some imbalances. I think you could even search Google or go on ChatGPT and look up what are risks with taking thyroid medications. Have you ever looked into nutrient imbalances when taking thyroid medications? But there are studies that show that you can get irregular rapid heartbeat, cardiovascular complications, and even bone loss. I'm not trying to dissuade you from taking your medication, but if you are not fully better taking your thyroid medications, and then this whole fear of the levothyroxine getting recalled, or your medication from Asia, which I don't think you should be getting from Asia, but if your medication from Asia is no longer being supported, and then now you're looking for a different doctor to prescribe the medication, why are you even on the medication in the first place? Yes, if it makes you feel better today, absolutely take it. Use it as a bridge. Use it until you can propel, until you figure out what is causing your root cause issues. Long term, if it's not healing the issue, because most people don't have a hypothyroid issue as a root cause, then what is going on? Yes, I know that some people say that the adrenals have been overtaxed and now you just have to support the thyroid. I don't think that is the case. Our bodies are smarter and more resilient than saying for the rest of our lives, we just have to take it easy. We do live in a very cortisol driven, high intense world. But if we can find the root cause, our bodies are so good at taking care of us and allowing the nutrients and the things that need to go around in the body work naturally. If your body's in a healthy state, you don't need to take thyroid medications. 200 years ago, thyroid medications didn't exist. So how did people end up supporting their thyroid if millions of people have hypothyroid? So then what is causing hypothyroid? Because I guarantee you it's not just because your mom had it and your grandma had it, so therefore that's why you have it. There is an underlying reason, and I just want you to find out why, because I think true healing gives you sovereignty. It gives you the ability to have the freedom to decide, I do want to take Armour or I don't. Or I do want to take some T3. I do want to take iodine. I do want to take this or that, but it is up to me. We saw the influx of emails coming in, and that's why I'm just here making this video. I think the goal shouldn't be, I'm so scared we need to fight for our rights for this medication, because one day they may pull it and make it more expensive, or just pull it because there's a better thing out there. The goal shouldn't be the fear of the medicine. For sure, in the moment, yes, be concerned and advocate for that. But the goal should be being free of as many medications as you can. If you don't trust the FDA or these three-letter governing bodies, how do you trust that your medicine is safe? And how do you trust that it'll be there for you even 10 years out? And I just hope that while it's not the easiest road to go to root cause healing, it will give you the most freedom. Anything that is worth fighting for in this life is hard. And I hope that you can find the reasons why your thyroid is imbalanced. And it's usually not because you're not eating enough carbs. It's usually not because you're not getting enough T4 or T3 or enough medications. And usually there's something more underlying. And if you understand the mechanistics of the body, for example, the hypothalamus in your brain releases TRH, and the pituitary, because of the TRH, then releases TSH. And then the thyroid gland releases the T4 and then some T3, and then the T4 gets converted to T3. and it depends on how much TSH that's circulating. What if we went upstream and we looked at what are all the things that the pituitary and the hypothalamus gets impacted by? For example, trauma is impacting the hypothalamus. The pituitary gets impacted by SIRS. Long COVID, chronic Lyme, these areas impact these parts of the brain. What if your body is not releasing enough TSH or it's releasing too much TSH because those things are wonky? What if it's not a thyroid thing and we're thinking, oh, downstream, the numbers, our labs show that T4 and T3 is low, so therefore I just need to put in the numbers. But if your fatigue is not getting better, that should be your clue that it's probably not, you're not regulating the T4 and T3 enough. Why is it imbalanced when a healthy body balances it on its own? The other thing you could think of is in order to produce T4 and T3 and TSH, you need raw nutrients in your body. Some of them is adequate protein. Some of it is iodine. And so if you think about these things, all of this needs to work in a synchronized harmony. And so when we're like, oh, low T3, let's do that. And I also think the same thing for BHRTs or hormones. Just because you're low in progesterone doesn't mean that it's just progesterone is the fix. I know you can feel better by doing that. But what is the upstream effect that's causing your progesterone or your T4 or T3 to be low or your TSH to be high? I think these are things that we should think about because ultimately the goal is root cause and to have the freedom and to have the wellness so that you can do and live the way that you want to. And if you are not feeling well enough by taking thyroid medications, and it's always this, I just need to dial up and dial down the T4 and T3, and then eventually I'll get to a perfect balance. Your body is never going to be in this perfect balance. As you get older, things will change. As your lifestyle and your exercise routine changes, things will change. As your diet changes, things will change. Why are we dependent on these medications? I know it's not a fun conversation. I know it's not an easy conversation, but I'm always going to advocate for root cause healing because that will give you ultimate freedom, ultimate wellness. And my goal is always to empower you. Okay, guys, make sure to eat a lot of meat. Take care of your bodies because it is the only place you have to live. I will talk to you later. Bye, guys.